welcome everyone, and thank you for attending today. It's so exciting for us to host these events, and really happy that we're able to draw in some of our mentorship talent pool in on these events as well, because it's certainly I know Cheryl and I and Bruce really enjoy doing these things, and Najib too is a sort of a constant as well, and Annette. But yeah, it's nice to have some different folks on to provide some perspectives on the various elements of mentorship. And today we're really fortunate to have Rosa Martinez, who is a longtime Immigrant Employment Council employee and out of Calgary. And she was gracious enough to provide us some time this morning to give us some insights on mentorship that I think you'll appreciate. So I'll just go through her bio very quickly, and then I believe we do have a land acknowledgement after that too, Cheryl. Okay. So Rosa Martinez is an experienced adult educator with background in career advising, e-learning, workplace learning, and change management. With more than 10 years experience in the nonprofit sector, Rosa has worked with internationally trained professionals in different capacities: facilitator, mentor coordinator, career advisor, employment coach, program designer. It's a virtual Swiss Army knife of mentorship expertise, and has supported many initiatives in developing customized mentoring programs. Over the past few years, Rosa's professional interests have broadened to learning and development, supporting mentoring programs. Rosa's approach to developing these initiatives is based on systems thinking, collaborative leadership, and workplace learning. Visualizing and embracing the dynamic nature of any initiative, working together towards common goals, and building skills and knowledge while at work are key factors in the search and achievement of impactful solutions. Welcome, Rosa. And before I pass the torch to you, I'm going to read the land acknowledgement. Or Cheryl, did you want to do that? Or
sure, I can do that, Doug. Let me just.
Oh, there was a little extra piece here before we. This workshop is part of the Alberta Mentorship CA. In parentheses, we've got the acronym AMP, Alberta Mentorship Program Initiative. We are grateful that AMP is made possible with the support from the Government of Alberta. Do you want me to just continue on?
Yeah, you go, Doug. You're on a roll. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not as hurt from hockey last night as I thought. The City of Edmonton acknowledges the traditional land on which we reside is in Treaty 6 territory. We would like to thank the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as the Niao, Nahiao, Cree Dene, Assiniboine, I'm sorry, I'm pronouncing these terribly, Anishinaabe, Saulteaux, Nakota Isaga, Nakota Sioux, and Nitztapi, Black and Blackfoot peoples. We also acknowledge this as the Métis homeland and the home of one of the largest communities of Inuit south of the 60th parallel. It is a welcoming place for all peoples who come from around the world to share Edmonton as home. Together we call upon our collective honored traditions and spirits to work in building a great city for today and future generations. Rosa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, and good morning to everyone. I arrived early and I was talking with Cheryl, and I said the way I have framed this in my mind is I'm sharing, and I love the title, Community Circle. So it is more like sharing my experience within CRIEC, Calgary Region Immigrant Employment Council, sharing bits and pieces of what we have been doing, how we have been doing, and I mean, I'm open to questions. Yeah, so I'm open to questions. So it's more like sharing piece. And let's start by looking at what I have prepared for today. Okay, just a minute. Okay, so I think that for me, working in CRIEC, I have realized that it's very important the way we look at evaluation or monitoring and evaluation. And I came up with all these images, and I don't know which of these, I mean, because all of them tap into how we should feel about this topic, or how you feel about this topic. Yes, for some of us is, oh my God, I have to start doing because funders are coming to get for results. Or, oh my God, yes, time to start for the new ones. Lots of hard work. Yes, lots of hard work coming. So these images in a way reflect how I feel about the topic and the real outcomes of that. The way I have organized this first, I mean, moving a little bit from the linear, non-linear perspective of mentoring, then evaluation, some key terms, monitoring, some key terms, because both are related, and sharing the experience from my organization in different points, to follow with a plan, monitoring and evaluation plan, sharing where we are at on my organization, and also some tools and resources that you can go through and find more on what you need for your organization. So, okay, let me, down. Okay, so the first thing that struck my mind is that, I mean, sometimes you see your organization in terms of, or the mentoring in terms of just one line, or clients, yes? Oh my God, I come, I join mentoring, I have a mentor, and boom, I get a job. Or in some other instances, it is more, well, there is a mentor-mentee organizations, labor market, industry trends, etc. So the linear or the traditional versus the kind of ecosystem where we are at. So in the linear version is looking at each element all isolated, whereas in the non-linear or the systems is everything is part of a big chunk. And that has some implications in the way we work in the organization, in the way we pay attention to certain elements, in the way we engage with all of them. So this image, I mean, I prepared a simple version of mentoring. So, I mean, it could start anywhere, yeah? So in your experience, I don't know where you started. Sometimes is, yes, there was a need in the community, so one organization took the lead, got funding, got community support, got mentees, got mentors, that's the partnership. But again, we depend on employers. If you are focused on programs that support newcomers to reach their employment integration and the labor market. Of course, there are more elements. And something that I think we have to pick from this perspective is that the interdependence among elements, that these are feedback loops, that there are many perspectives we need to consider when delivering a program, the emergence of things that are not even here. We can identify causality because of this, that, and again, how this resonates in mapping the whole piece. So these and a little part of, for example, in the organizational work for CRIEC, this is kind of the mentoring journey from the mentee's perspective. Yes, the different points, I mean, the different, requirements to become a mentee based on the funders' requirements, based on our capacity, and the different stages. Of course, looks linear, because that's the only way we can work to produce this. So in the CRIEC mentoring journey, there is a point where mentees come apply, and then they are assessed, then they are registered, then that's the mentee intervention, all the activities we organize to activate or get them ready for employment. Then we offer the partnership, and there are check-in points during this partnership, and then there is a follow-up, yes? So this journey could be seen from the mentee's perspective. The mentors have different kind of mapping. The people, I mean, in CRIEC, we call ourselves mentoring partnership coordinators. So it's also a different perspective. And in CRIEC, we have a special group that is the ITLs, International Trained Lawyers. So they also have kind of different journeys, but I just chose one for today. And another system perspective that, I mean, when mentees come, and some of them have been in the country for 2 weeks, they want the easiest and fast way to find a job. And you know that there is no easiest and fast way, because mentoring is just one point, and there are many other factors that will determine their, I mean, once they align, they will find a job. Now, with this perspective in mind, I mean, what can you share about this systems perspective in your organization? How does this perspective resonate with you? I mean, are you focused just in one piece because you are growing, because of funding? Have you considered all those parts?
So yeah, people, you know, please just unmute. It'd be great if your camera is on to respond.
If I can ask, if you can go back to your slide, the one that had a lot of sticky notes.
Yeah.
There, and I want to see exactly, based on that, I'll be able to kind of share a few things. Oh, there you go, that one. Just give me 2 seconds. I'm going to copy it. Okay. Oh.
Yeah, while Najib, are you, do you want a few moments? Crystal's got her hand up, so we could go to her first.
Yes, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah, Crystal, please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm just realizing, because we just started our career mentorship program in November, and we're coming to the end of our cohort. And yes, I'm realizing too that it's not so linear, as you pointed out. There's so many different parts coming into play. So I am adjusting, like tweaking whenever I can, my program and the expectations. So that is great to see that on screen, that it is not so linear that way.
Thank you for sharing, Crystal. Someone else? I mean, because, I mean, which part of this kind of interconnectedness are you aware of? Or are you still, I mean, just bringing one by one? There is no right or wrong, because I mean, normally we have been trained to look at things in this way, and happens that once you start running a program, it is, oh my God, funding. Oh yes, mentors. You have mentors, then you don't have mentees. Or you have mentees, you don't have mentors. Or like last year, okay, we, with all the COVID restrictions, we didn't have clients, and then they start coming. And suddenly there's community support, or suddenly some employers just close down. So you see, it is really this kind of awareness that helps us consider that nonlinear thinking sometimes is where we are. Yes, because sometimes in some organizations it's just, oh yeah, now the focus is only employers. Yes, but we also need to pay attention to mentees. We also need to pay attention to mentors. We need to pay attention to community partners. We need to be aware of funding. We need to be aware of the industry trends, especially Alberta, that I mean, it's like the weather up and down in many different areas. So this mentoring from a systems thinking approach considers many factors, all in action, all in interdependence, multiple perspectives. So when assessing or when evaluating, it's not just the voice of the mentor, it's the voice of the mentee, it's the voice of the people who work for the organization, it's the voice of funders, it's the voice of community partners, it's the voice of employers, and all under one frame. I mean, based in the context you are, whether it's Grand Prairie, whether it's Edmonton, whether it's Calgary or other cities. Now, this journey
Rhoda,
yes, sorry.
I see Doug has raised his hand as well, so maybe
Yeah, oh, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that we're all, you know, sort of in awe of those two models, because it's like, oh my God, like, and for many of us, I mean, certainly that sort of linear and nonlinear approach has always been, you know, especially once you delve into this kind of work, you start to feel comfortable with the nonlinear. You kind of hoped, at least for me, in my case, I appreciated the, you know, sort of a nice clean map that goes, sort of has a nice logical progression to it, and that just kind of helps me to keep myself organized. But then you start to realize, once you immerse yourself into this kind of work, that it isn't nonlinear, and it's about getting to a point of feeling comfortable with the nonlinear, and like it's okay. But then that sometimes causes some issues too. Once you start feeling comfortable with the nonlinear and the linear coexisting, even sometimes, it's, as you said, like, what about those relationships with, let's say, a funder, which likes to see things in nice, you know, sort of clean linear pathways and boxes. It gets a little bit uncomfortable sometimes to try and explain that to people who are going to invest into programs. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a weird relationship, but it's about feeling comfortable with the nonlinear if you're in a linear mode, and maybe even an appreciation for, like, wow, it is nonlinear, because that's what you're discovering.
Thank you for sharing that. Yes. Yeah, I think it's that uneasiness that is very difficult to what? Yes, it's messy. It sounds beautiful. It's messy. And sometimes it goes in one direction and comes into other direction. And so these patterns always are in constant dynamic connection. Yes, like last year, all of a sudden, wow, less clients. All of a sudden, not our fault, but it was COVID, it was the restrictions. Or yeah, suddenly, you know, there is some funding that's coming. Oh my God, immediately, because you need that funding. So it's always very dynamic. It's always very messy. And it needs to come to terms to this. Will be nice, beautiful. Oh my God, it goes this. And again, it's interesting because not only service providers of mentoring programs, but also clients, they come, oh my God, please, I mean, I want mentoring because I get a mentor and I get a job. You know that's not like that, yes? So I remember this client, I mean, let me share this. Yeah, young lady, international trained lawyer. Yeah, Rosa, you know, what I want from the program is something fast and easy to start working as a lawyer. And I just smile. I say, wow, well, there's no something fast and easy to be a lawyer, because it requires a license. Yes, it requires that you are in a good emotional and mental health, that you feel confident you will do it, and that you adapt. So it is a myriad of little points based on the program you have that gets more and more complicated, and mentoring is just one point. And by doing this mentoring, probably that's the importance, that if it's well done, I mean, the impact in other points will pay off at the end. So,
and I see Annette, sorry, has her hand raised. Are we okay for another question, or
yes, please,
Yeah.
please.
Rosa, I just want to say, I think what strikes me when you present this way, like, I agree it's like messier, and I feel a lot safer when I think of it in linear, but I think it recognizes the reality of what's happening. But I also think it recognizes the agency of all those pieces and players and parts. And that just struck me as really interesting, because it's like we can line things up as much as we want, but based on priority, need, and all sorts of factors like you're mentioning, agency of all of these players, it just seems important that it sort of embraces that in the mess. And it's going to be messier, but I love that it sort of acknowledges that. And I think I need to get out of linear thinking.
Yeah, and for certain easy things, yes, of course, linear thinking, I need to, okay, Doug has a convention next week, that's linear thinking, there's no way, yes, but for complex things like running the whole program that depends on many other factors, I mean, it's always kind of interconnected. Yeah, so, but having this awareness that certain things will be linear, certain things, or the whole program will be more on the systems thinking, yes, and it's coming to terms with the messiness and navigating different factors. And because we're in the social world, where, I mean, every client is unique, and every client will reflect this also, yes. So that is the piece. And now, of course, we need to use this just to visualize, but again, that doesn't. So probably here, some parts of this map are linear. Application, there's one point, I mean, you go, you apply, done, yeah? So yes, that's linear. But for here, the partnership, the effect of the interventions, I mean, all of them are movable parts, And again, when I decided to map the journey, and I said, okay, from the system's perspective, we need to hear the voice of mentees. Yes, but at the end, I mean, that would require time, that would require more things. So I brainstormed this with the help of my colleagues. And we decided just to focus on the mentee, because it takes time. At least it took this about 6 or 8 hours to come up with all this. So ideally, each player should be having this kind of work, but at the end of the day, we go for the one that will have more effect, and that is the mentee. Because in this journey, I mean, it is staff, mentoring partner coordinators, it is mentors, it is other players. So thank you for your participation. Now, in all this messy world, how do you currently monitor and evaluate your mentoring program? Or what information do you often collect, or how often? And who collects that information? I mean, any of these questions, what do you use the collect the information for? Or what challenges do you have? What learnings can you share? So not that you need to have something done, but or how do you feel about this topic? Okay, please. What can you share on this part?
So, sorry, just to clarify your question, Rosa, are you wanting to know how people are currently doing monitoring and evaluation? Yeah.
Yes, please. I mean, that is what I'm asking participants to share.
Yeah, go ahead, Andrea.
Thanks. So where I work, I'm a part of a group called an employee engagement group. And we recognized a need within the staff that they wanted a mentorship program. So it sounds a little bit different than maybe what some other people were talking about, but it's basically, you know, staff mentoring other staff.
Yeah.
And we are in our third pilot, and there's different directorates within the organization. And we started out with one, and now we are accessible now to the entire organization. But we've been using surveys as the biggest way to try to evaluate how the program is going. We've used a mural to try to get some feedback that way. We try to collect information on a lot on the mentor and assessing, like, you know, are they comfortable within the session? Are they reaching their goals? Is the mentor prepared? And just asking, you know, how satisfied are you with the program and different things like that. And then we use that and turn it into like a, you know, a paper or such to kind of prove to like the leadership or higher ups that, you know, yes, this is working. It's something that is important to us, and that we should, you know, continue on this path that we're, you know, it is a need, and it's obviously being beneficial to the staff. I think some challenges that we have is that we are kind of held to the powers that be, I guess, you know, like if they back a program, then it can go really well. And they have been doing that thus far. And then we're also kind of limited with funding as well. You know, we don't really, we've been able to get some funding for different things. Like if a group needed a certain material, like a book or something that they needed purchased. But I think that that's where our limitations are. But it's been interesting to watch the whole progression of it from the first pilot to now. And like you were saying before, all the different factors at play that have come in and how it's changed and grown. But that's where we are at.
Wow, thank you. Lots of interesting things. Someone else? We're sharing, okay? So we're sharing.
And so, you know, maybe it's possible. Yeah, thanks, Davey. But, you know, you could also focus on, you know, the kind of things that have worked really well for you. Yeah, go ahead, Davey.
Thanks so much, Rosa. This is so interesting and really hopeful. You know, sometimes. So I'm working in a school, and we're at the beginning of some mentoring programs. So we haven't started yet in all the capacities. And so seeing that system, the little bit messiness is actually really reassuring for me, because it feels messy. And I'm like, I think this is how it's supposed to feel. But, you know, so it's really nice to see, you know, all the types of ways that we could start to collect that information. I noticed on your chart, I couldn't read it all that well, but one of the things is how people are feeling through the process. And I thought that's something that I hadn't really thought to, you know, collect. Like, it's more, you know, what's working, what isn't working, you know, how is typically what we look for, but how are you feeling through it is a kind of an interesting thing to include and really important. Thank you. I'd be curious to hear the other things that you're asking.
Thank you. Okay, now, thank you for sharing. I mean, I think that is very, very, I mean, reassuring in the sense that we are not alone in this task, because we are, oh my God, CRIEC is doing, oh yeah, I mean, I will show reality and I will show ideal things. But the good thing is that we're moving, okay? So let's be hopeful. And I really appreciate this conversation today, because it is, oh yeah, I mean, at least there are peers that we can bounce off our concerns, our issues, challenges, learning. So that, I mean, I think that the spirit is what also keeps us going. So now into the, the dog, raise hand. I can see that in my.
I'm trying not to say too much. I really want everybody to participate, but I can't help it. Yeah, this is a tough place, you know, because we know, and considering the previous discussion on linear and nonlinear, and then there's the, you know, sort of there's another element to all of this, which is qualitative and quantitative.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, like very straightforwardly with our funders, yeah, we count numbers, which is, you know, lovely, but it really doesn't give you the whole story. And you know, given the sticky map that you put up earlier, like it's complex, and when you're immersed in this kind of work, I mean, it's the complexity of human personalities, and how, you know, we always often talk about moving the needle, and you know, straightforwardly, yes, it would be nice. We count numbers. Somebody goes into a mentorship program and they get a job. Well, there's so much more complexity to that, and you know, where is, you know, sort of the sort of behavioral reflection here, and how we changed and moved the needle on behavior, and sort of the interculturalness of the whole program that we run, and the awareness of that, and self-awareness of the client, self-awareness of the mentor. All of those play in factor, but of course you're not going to be able to do any sort of psychometric study on each individual. It would be too expensive, and but it would be nice to see. I mean, because we know, if when you're involved with these programs, we see it, where we're present when these things change, and so we know what's happening to the individual or individuals in those dynamics. But how do you articulate that? And I think to a previous comment about how to measure, you know, like the biggest thing and probably the simplest thing that we can do is, you know, survey people, communicate with people, and get feedback. And, you know, it's hardly scientific. It's mostly testimonial and anecdotal, but that's fine too, because that really helps and informs us in moving and changing the program if we need to. Those kinds of that kind of measurement is really important. Now, I don't send that information to Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship Canada, and I know that they know, but it's just, how do you articulate that? And so that becomes always a bit of a conundrum for programs. You know, straightforward is, yes, you enter into a program, you come out of it, and hopefully 6 months after participating in that program, you found work. But it's not as simple as that.
Thank you. That's the perspective from somebody who has to deal with the funders. I'm so happy I don't have to do that. Thank you. Thank you. Well, all these setting the stage for what is evaluation. Okay, so oh my God, I spend lots of things just to give the most practical information. So yeah, process of determining the value, the worth of a program. In this case, a mentoring program, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in the school, whether it's in an immigrant serving agents. So it's systematic, as much objective as possible, of a plan thing of, okay, ideally you should have these before starting, but reality is you get funding and boom, you go into the ongoing when it's on or when it's completed. So in the specific case of CRIEC, I mean, we got funding for 5 years, so we are nearing the 5 years. So we will be, I mean, we will have to do that. And the ongoing, it's every year trying to get information for every year. And then when it's completed too, evaluations, appraise data and information that inform strategic decisions. So data we collect because we have to make decisions. In the case of funders, yes, we give you more funding, or yeah, no, we don't have the funding, or we move the funding to something else. So the good thing about evaluation is that once we determine the value, I mean, we can improve the program in the future. If you depend on extra funding, yes, the future of a mentoring depends on that. In the case of Andrea, I think Andrea, no, the school said, yeah, Andrea, I think you mentioned about the workplace. Yeah, so it's always this dynamic that you have to prove the accountability, you have to prove the results for even within a workplace that this is worthy. And as Dosa says, yes, it is always the qualitative versus the quantitative and how we navigate that. So, but evaluation is determining the value of a program before, during, or after. And that information will lead to strategic decisions. And some terminology, okay? I didn't want to focus too much on the terminology. So there are activities. In the case of CRIEC, we have certain activities that we think they will help mentees get employment. In the case of a workplace mentoring, I mean, probably there are certain activities that reflection, journal writing, I don't know what else, but those activities in order to achieve the program outputs. Efficiency is more related to that addresses the question whether more effects could have been obtained with the same budget or whether the same effects could have been obtained at a lower cost. So, and it's good to have this element because we always have to pitch for, I mean, that our programs are effective. So, and again, probably here, there are other indicators where you can just say number of hours. And this number of hours that mentors volunteer and you quantify that and then you divide and wow, that proves that yes, you engage with other people. Effectiveness, the extent to which a program meets its intended outputs and objectives. Is it an effective mentoring, the one you're running? Indicators, so whether it is quantitative or qualitative parameters, we need indicators. Qualitative data that is descriptive, expressed in terms of feelings rather than numerical values. Quantitative data that counts or numbers. And yes, IRCC asks us for a great chunk of numbers, a little bit on outcomes. And there is one section that says narrative something. But I don't know whether they read it. No idea. An outcome measures the change in behavior or resource used in relation to the program. Outcomes are usually considered in a time frame, short-term, intermediate, long-term. And outputs, products or services. So outputs is more numbers, outcome comes more on the impact. So yes, Najib.
Okay, I wanted to make a comment on a few different segments here, but the main comment is the effectiveness indicator, either we're producing qualitative or quantitative numbers or services. I think for us on the ground to concentrate solely on outcomes, we're kind of limited by the structure of funding right now that IRCC offers, or the obligation we have for IRCC. It seems like, it's always felt like that funders are always looking for outputs, not for outcomes. We on the ground trying to be more looking for outcomes because we strive ourselves to be a client-centered services. We're looking for achievements, we're looking for outcomes, and then meeting the needs of clients. And if you are restricted somehow by the funders that are only looking for numbers, they're not interested a lot in the outcome. Aside from give me a success story, one or two, give me testimonials. I wish we could change the structure of the fundings a little bit to give us a little bit of more breathing room and more focus on client-centric services rather than outputs.
Yeah, I mean, in the resources, there's a nice video for all these factors, nicely done. You can play it on your own. Yeah, now let me share that part where at this moment, funders, at least IRCC, is asking for outputs, that's the numbers, and outcomes as the qualitative part. So before going into that, the relation with monitoring. Yeah, so evaluation is assessing something for its value. Now, what is monitoring? Monitoring goes hand in hand. It's a systemic collection of information to learn and improve practices and activities, to have internal and external accountability, the external, the funders, internal within the team, to make informed future decisions, to promote empowerment of beneficiaries that could be mentees, mentors, staff, organization, partners. So the good thing about monitoring, everything is documented and helps to steer decision-making and learning processes. We check against what we have been given by funders, and the data is required for evaluation. So this is the really embedded concept within evaluation. So evaluation, I need data. How do I collect it? Through monitoring what I have implemented, and for many different purposes. Now, what I have here is going back into the previous participation. Yeah, so in the non-profit, I mean, if you are funded by IRCC, they provide us with this logic model. Yes, so they mention activities. So here in this provision of employment related services, we find mentoring. So that's one of the activities. This is their big macro level thing for them. So in outputs under this employment, they have many different interventions. What we have is mentoring. So this is from the top perspective. And outcomes, they set for immediate outcomes. Clients acquire knowledge, skills, and connections to prepare for the Canadian labor market. In the intermediate, clients participate in the Canadian labor market. In the ultimate integration, successfully integrated and settled clients benefit Canada. So they provide us with a logic model. Now, this is what CRIEC did in 2020 based on that logic model. So the CRIEC model strategies center around clients. We call them international trained professionals. And we decided that we will engage with them in the pre-mentoring, mentoring, and post-mentoring, and some of the activities, some of the outputs. So the activities are the outputs. We mentioned that will be effective and efficient with the collaboration of the sector or other partners. So something well, at that moment it made sense in 2020, because again, that's the dynamic of the system. For immediate outcomes, we mentioned that knowledge, skills, attitude change, overcoming barriers, ownership, initiative, and action, best integration environment. So those were our immediate outcomes. And we thought very important that we needed mentee and partner collaboration. So mentee increase social economic connections, increase partner and sector collaboration. It's always with the sector. It's always with other partners. Intermediate outcomes, we identify mentees, implement a meaningful career path. Mentees are integrated by volunteering and mentoring, decrease barriers, diverse and inclusive professional and social networks, and the ultimate outcome, their socioeconomic integration, pursue professional outcomes, contribute to Canadian society, communities welcome. So what we were given here as part of IRCC logic model, we came with something that we adapted
And if I could just
Yes.
break in, Rosa, like, so what I really see in this, and I, we've talked in the past, like in my past career life, I was an evaluator as well. You're embedding the funder focus on outputs and these wider sort of longer term outcome scenarios, like what I see in this slide, particularly, you're linked, you can see the line through so that you're linking one to the other, because it does, I totally agree with Najib's earlier comment that so often in funding programs, there's a very particular and short-term focus about what they want to see. And so what I'm seeing in what you're presenting here in the CRIEC model, you've embedded that into this bigger picture, this longer term systems way of looking at that, so that it's not one or the other, it's both that happen. I did want to just check, I saw Karen, you had your hand raised earlier. Did you have a question you wanted to bring in at this time, or?
I did have a question, but I think it might have gone past that. I was just curious because the monitoring was about the effectiveness of the program and potentially the outcome of the participants. I'm just curious whether anybody's monitoring the professional development of the mentors who deliver the program, whether that's a factor.
Thank you for the question, because again, remember, we are looking this from a systemic perspective, and here for this presentation, I'm just trying to squeeze these two concepts. I will, the next slide probably shows that. Yes, so the big picture embedded into an adaptation, and just thinking about, Andrea, in the workplace. So again, it's always making the business case for the HR department or for whoever is there overseeing the program, is what are the immediate outcomes, what are the intermediate outcomes, the ultimate goal. So it's adapting these things, because for funders, that's what helps them understand. So in this journey that looks straight, but it's not straight, just because we need some kind of a straight representation. So the monitoring happens at many different stages, because we will be collecting information at the stage of application, at the stage of assessment, at the stage of mentee interventions, all the activities we have. Once we do the partnership, we will be also doing checking points. So at the first month, second month, third month, to see, it's always checking how things are going to course correct. And then there is a follow-up, and the follow-up after the third month and the sixth month, because again, this is accountability for our funders. But again, this is really interesting because this is just the mentee map, yes, because in the mentor, because it's very important that, mentoring exists because on one side there's a mentee, on the other is a mentor. So for mentors, we have a similar map, but again, yes, they have to apply. We don't have to assess. We call them, in the case, the onboarding. They have to register in a pool. And they have their own mentor activities. So it is always organizing development sessions for them based on their needs, and also listening to their needs and how we support them. Of course, there is no checking points, there's no follow-up, but in CRIEC, because we've been long enough, it's that for mentors, they have their own mentor, what's that, the MAC, mentoring council group. Yes, there's mentors who volunteer that, and they are the ones who give us feedback on what else we can do with mentors, because mentors also need to feel engaged to keep going in this journey. So it goes hand in hand. And something about output targets. So the output targets is mainly numbers. Yes, this is what IRCC asks, the output targets. So for CRIEC, it is how many information and orientation one-on-one. So for year, this is year 3. So this is the number of clients we have to do, 225. We are over that. Employment-related services, specifically mentor, it's to do this kind of partnerships. We are over that. Another thing they will be checking on CRIEC is the networking opportunities. And this is the number we have as a target for the year, for year 3. And employment-related services, networking opportunities, 90 matches, or what we call coffee meetings. In Edmonton, they call it connector, where we have ended up doing coffee meetings only. So, so these are the numbers that they ask. Yes, they ask. And these are the outcomes. So the outcomes is more on the impact of those activities. So in the 3rd and the 6th month after post-mentoring, they will be checking that 60% of clients have secured employment. So thanks to nice negotiation to move the needle, that is what we got for CRIEC. Professional job in client's field, in related field, in new chosen field, because that's the reality for our clients. Or entry level in client's field, related field, new chosen field, based on education, experience, training, and career aspirations. So no transitional jobs made here, because that's, I mean, we not get funding to move them into transitional jobs, but this is what we expect, 3 to 6 months. So again, we are beyond this outcome target, and follow appropriate educational path also. So retraining in client's field based on education or licensure or advanced education. So yes, though.
Oh, this is awesome. I just wanted to go back to Karen's question though.
Yeah.
Karen, can you just ask some? We're looking at I guess the impact of the mentor, or the I guess the capacity building of the mentor. Could you just rephrase that question, or repeat the question again?
I guess to deliver a service, you want to make sure that everybody has the competence and the capability. And just curious whether the program becomes more effective as the mentors confidence and experience, and whether that is monitored and measured. And that's just because the slides have been focusing quite obviously on the things people normally would monitor and on the outcomes of the mentees. So I was thinking from the mentor's point of view.
Can Rosa, can I just add something to that? And this is, and I'm sure Bruce can chime in on this as well, and anybody who's funded by IRCC. And it's been, you know, sort of a common, we all recognize, including the funders, that mentors and mentees are the formula for this kind of thing. But when it comes to, in our case here in Canada, with the IRCC funding, Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship Canada, which is sort of one of the biggest supporters of mentorship in this adaptation and integration approach to newcomers, our common complaint or request back to IRCC was like, where are the resources for, let's say, the mentor side of the equation? And I mean, we have creatively been able to do that without, you know, in the shadows of our funders. They recognize that we do, but there is no direct funding for mentor development. So what we always, for example, in the case of in Edmonton, we run intercultural workshops for mentees. in parentheses, and mentors. And so we encourage mentors to attend if they have the time. And that's part of their professional development, part of their understanding, building their mentorship muscle, if you will.
Yeah.
And so we kind of just are able to do that sort of creatively. And I think to your point, Karen, there's a lot of focus on the mentee for sure. And that makes sense. And that's what the Canadian government would like us to do. But we cannot do this work without the mentor, without employers, without the business community. I don't know. We've been in recent meetings and just last week, and that came up not just in mentorship, but in other sort of capacities. How do we get the business community involved with these kinds of things and help them to become complicit in the success of integration of newcomers? Again, we do it, but not with a lot of resources and just a lot of creativity at this point. I don't know if that answers your question, Karen, but it is being done.
Thank you for sharing that, though. Yes. I mean, this looks like we only focus on mentees because funders will be checking. Yes, we focus on mentees, but creatively, we have to really work with the next, I mean, the very important player in this equation, the mentors, because they need to keep engaged. They need to get professional development. We need to acknowledge their participation. So yes, and not only that, I mean, I would say also partners, community partners. But yeah, so looks like it is because, I mean, strategically, we will be, we are assessed based on these numbers and based on these outcomes. But in order for the success of the mentoring, it is that we also engage other elements. I mean, other elements of that messy system, like mentors and mentees. And following that, I mean, how the other very important piece in this is learning and development opportunities. I didn't know what to write. I mean, staff or team is, I would say the team, because at all the time we are adapting, assessing, designing, implementing, and learning. All the time. It's a moving system because, those mentioned something interesting. When we are doing this, and also I think Najib, yes, when we are working in the field, we see things that we know funders still are not looking at that, but we are responsive. So this demands continuous learning and development opportunities for staff, for the organization, and it goes because in a system perspective, whatever you communicate to management makes an impact. So Andrea, that you mentioned your mentoring in the workplace. Oh yeah. So depending how you wrap the package, the report, it will make an impact and it will get support, or it will emerge a different kind of practice. So, I mean, let me check, we're keeping time. But please, if you have questions, just raise your hand. Yeah, we have just enough time. So now, how do those two pieces get together, the monitoring and evaluation? So continuous management function. So it's always on the go, that we use to assess if progress is made in achieving expected results. So could be at the level of, in the My Program registration, in the level of assessment, at the level of activity. So at any point to assess progress, to spot bottlenecks, yes, and then do some course correction, because we cannot wait till the report is made. So that is why it's important also to support these learning and development opportunities of the people who run the program, or to highlight unintended effects. Could be positive, could be negative, from the program and its activities. So it's always very dynamic. So mentoring is very dynamic. Till last year, I mean, well, no, not even till last year. Yes, probably till last year. we were doing our clients were people from different backgrounds, and then suddenly some people, medical lab technologies, showed up at our doors. Because we had experience running international trained lawyers, which is also a licensed profession, immediately we took over. And right now we have a group of 6 people. So it's emerging, and just learned that 2 got jobs, and it is helping them move with their licensing. So because it's dynamic, it's also, that was unintended, yes, but again, good to mention, good for our funders. So the monitoring and evaluation the evaluation will help us, judge what we're doing. It's good, it's bad. The monitoring is on the go. It's on the go, and that allows us to identify things that we need to change, or to identify, positive unintended effects, negative unintended effects. So where to start for the monitoring and evaluation? It looks beautiful in theory, yes, but again, it's a matter of starting somewhere, and it's a matter of not only you, the people who are here, but it's having someone else in the workplace to launch this. So it starts with, what kind of evaluation do I want to do? Do I want to focus on the process? Do I want to focus on the outcomes? Do I want to focus on the learners, on investment? What's next? Theory of change. You will come with this word, or this is the logic model. The theory of change is the activities you think will help you achieve your goals. And in CRIEC, we have specific activities like mentoring, networking, smart connections, etc., and that will change based on the mentoring program you have. Now, something for the indicators, for the output indicators. Output is mainly numbers, number of mentoring information sessions, number of job readiness workshops, number of employer sessions, partnerships, employment coaching meetings. It's numbers, outcomes, percentage of. And these are for immediate outcomes, okay? So I just wanted to put those 2, because here, the beauty of is you can have a plan. Not to what extent can that be useful? Even if it's a simple plan, yes, because this looks, wow, outstanding. So how to develop? Identify your evaluation audience. So for CRIEC, that we get funding from the government, and it is every year, or it's at the end of the 5th year. So those are our audience. But the parallel is not just for funders, it's also for our clients, it's for the delivery, for mentees, yes? So it is coming with evaluation questions here, because those evaluation questions, just a minute, I hope I can move this. Oh, yes, I can move this. So once you identify who you are evaluating for, define your evaluation questions, identify the monitoring questions, identify the indicators. Yeah, so these indicators, it's just one example. Of course, this goes in numbers, percentages. Identify indicators and data source. So where will you get the data from? Or where will the data come from? Surveys, checklists, observation notes, focus groups, structure interviews, mentees emails, staff meeting minutes, I don't know. Identify who and the time frame of collection, who will be collecting, yes, how you will capture the data, the team lead, the case manager, staff, and when, yes, the estimated cost, because everything has a cost. And now the evaluations, again, the evaluation is in blue, who will be involved? Because this was part of a work I had to do for a course on evaluation. I say, oh, external evaluator. I don't know if the organization has money to hire an external evaluator, or at the end of the day, it has to be someone who is in the organization. And how would it be reported? A statistics report, summary of observations. If you're reporting for IRCC, probably they have a kind of template. And when Yes. So ideally at the start of the program, so you have a baseline, where you are starting. At the end, in the case of IRCC, at the end of year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. And so this is the ongoing, and at the end of year 5 to measure whether changes and outcomes can be attributed to the program. So this big template, I mean, it's one of the resources I found. Looks like, wow, a gargantuan task. But again, I think it helps to place what we need to focus and when are we collecting the information and who, because otherwise we get into everyday workload and little can be achieved. And when we have to send reports, the easiest part is just count numbers. We end up doing the same thing. So going back to my example, ideally, I mean, yes, at this level, we get information, but informally, we self-correct here. If because we meet weekly, so if there is some certain problems, we self-correct here. In the assessment, we share difficult cases. Again, there is informal monitoring going on. Mentee interventions, we have networking events, we have smart connections, etc., etc. Again, we get feedback, and we get in the checking points for the partnership, we get information to self-correct, and the follow-up. So in a way, we have practically, we do the monitoring, but because the audience for our evaluation is the big funder, whatever we document, etc., is in terms of the audience who we are writing the evaluation for. And okay, so challenges and opportunities. So, okay, what's the time? We have 5 minutes. Any comments on the big monster? Because I mean, it's a lot. Gargantuan task. Any comments?
I mean, one of the things I really like, you know, you're focusing on an example that focuses on the mentee journey, Rosa. What I really like is if that's the starting point, you know, you can put any person, you know, it could be mentors, it could be external partners, you know, you could set up the journeys and run through. And of course, the nature of that could be quite different, but it really helps be clear about, so for this audience, what are we attending to? Lots of work to set this up from scratch. And it tells me that you get then a much more sophisticated lens to take on that whole interconnected, you know, all of the points, and make changes and learn through the system. So I just like that you're kind of laying out, you know, it does seem like a lot at first glance, but it's a way to engage with all of that, so you can choose on what you're focusing for a particular data collection or whatever. Because this is the question I often find people don't know what questions to ask, and so they throw a bunch of random things up. And so I really like how you're demonstrating system, I guess, to wrap up my comment.
I just wanted to add.
Oh, yes, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Rosa. I just wanted to add, I know for many watching this today, I mean, there's some fantastic material here. And I just, thanks, Rosa, for doing this. This is incredible. And in but this took a while to get to. This is an iterative process. We all have been, both the CRIEC and Eric office and others, we all started where you guys are starting. Yeah. And so we, you know, this is quite complex, as Rosa referenced the monster. You know, it's great that we have these tools for us to share with you, and you will get there one day. And you might want to poke in and have a look at these kinds of resources at some points. But if you're starting up something new, you may want to go to a little bit more simpler sort of concept just to get started. Because what I'm afraid is that maybe some of you might go, oh my God, like this is going to be, this is way too much. This is not what I want. This is not what I signed up for. But these kinds of tools have helped us to secure funding over the years and allow that mentorship is funded. And so we have to adhere to the rules. And I think it's really good practice. The issues come when, as Rosa said, do we have the time to do this? Can we do this internally, or do we have to hire external? Would the funders even provide us with the funding to do some of this work? So we're constantly addressing these kinds of issues. But boy, if somebody had to talk to us like Rosa today in our first year of operations of a mentorship program, I probably would have gone, oh my God. But I would have been looking for tools like this or information like this, and would have liked to talk to people who are doing it. So there you go. That's just a little sidebar comment for you, Rosa.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, so this looks, this reflects more CRIEC in the sense that our audience for this evaluation is funders. So funders are trying to see, okay, we invested on this, so it is very mentee focused. So the monitoring is more allowing for us to be creative and to really reinforce the system, but being strategic, we owe that accountability to funders. So these, of course, in a different organization, it's different. And given the short time we have, so officially we do this here. So this is the official piece, the 3 months, 6 months, but all the other steps, we do this for the sake of the program itself, So some challenges and opportunities, hard to find time to focus on M and E and then on a plan. Yeah, so, but having that understanding probably gives some kind of guidance. And then what I came was more with opportunities to allocate work time to an MME implementation, because yes, it provides, ideally there would be a team going to other organizations and just providing that will be great. Yes. Frame monitoring and evaluation importance to achieve program goals. Yes, as Doug says, that's how we have secure funding. Embrace continuous learning. Yes, it's learning at all levels for everyone. And engage the team to co-create this plan, because it's not just one person. And promote participatory gathering data and their perspectives, because it's not only mentees. This is very specific for the kind of funding, for the kind of evaluation. But sorry, Andrea, if I go over and over, you mentioned the workplace. So it's mentors, it's HR, it is mentees, it is, I don't know, the division managers, hiring managers. So it's based on your organization, you have different players. Getting their perspectives, and that could help. And before we run more, I found beautiful resources here. So you click and then you have a complete toolbox with a tool selector where you have nice examples and indicators, because probably that's the hardest part. How do I write indicators and how do I measure outcomes? And so these are the easiest ones to tap in. You don't have to go into detail. Yeah, and references. So, I'll make sure that you get all these resources, and through Cheryl, I will make sure that, yes, I have the chance to share and to continue this conversation. Oh, 2 minutes after.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much, Rosa. For your generous sharing of what's been, absolutely, you've walked through several years of building out this system, building out this approach in CRIEC. And so, yeah, just to confirm, well, make sure you get a link to the recording. If Rosa, is willing to share her presentation slides so that people can sort of follow up on the links, we'll get that out to you as well. And maybe over to you, Doug, to wrap.
Yeah, I wish we had some time for questions. I'm really curious. Karen was visiting us from England. I think that's so amazing. This is not, since we've started up the AMP program, it's not the first time we've had international interests in the work that we're doing, which is, it says a lot about the importance of mentorship and even the curiosity and as mentorship as a tool in helping lifting people up and moving them to a place where they have success, and that transference of knowledge between one person to another. And then in the case of the work that we do in the Immigrant Employment Councils, it's that peer-to-peer transference, which is really, I find really fascinating. It's not, we try to keep it less hierarchical, and that people are learning on both sides of the equation. But certainly for the newcomers that are here in Canada, they're going to, receive some information that's going to lead them to what our funders want, which is, sort of integration through employment and making connections and building social capital on the ground in the places that they're living. So, Rosa, this was awesome. Thank you so much. And the wealth of knowledge that you shared with us today is just fantastic. And the tools, even for myself, and sort of an oldster in this sector, but I mean, I love the way you articulated and with your experience, and I think a lot of people gained a lot of great knowledge today. And thank you for allocating your time for us. And so thanks, everyone. I wish we could have a little bit of time for some questions, but we hope to see, if you're interested, we do have other sessions coming up, and we would love for you to participate. And certainly the richness occurs too, when not only that sort of one side of the conversation occurs, but it's really rich when we can get some feedback, and that's how we've grown our programs, is thanks to the feedback of the stakeholders. So thanks again for taking time out of your morning or evening, I guess, in some cases, and participating in this workshop, and look forward to seeing you all again. Thank you, Cheryl and Annette, for all of your background work on this in coordination, and thanks to all the participants who were here today.
Thank you. Bye.